Hey there, everybody. Been having a really good conversation on Facebook here with, I think it's Ivar, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name, but I'm never that good at spelling, and you're from a foreign land. So I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that, but Ivar is, follows me on Facebook pretty close, and we've got really good conversations that we have about this issue of monetary policy, about what the Fed is doing, about the devaluation of the currency, about what the potential ramifications of that is, and then really most importantly, about what the end looks like and where we're headed. And he and I have some very different views on exactly what's going to happen. I think we both kind of see the same scenario playing itself out. Ivar kind of falls into the category of being one who believes that the Federal Reserve is going to destroy the dollar, is going to completely devastate our currency, that there's going to be no hope, that your only hope is to buy gold, and that you are, anything beyond that is, you might as well just be burning your money because it's not going to be worth anything soon anyway. And I hope I've, I didn't, I don't mean to, to make it sound as though you're some sort of doomsday, addict. I hope I've kind of done a good job of encompassing what your position is. What I want to address here with this is just simply an issue of a problem that pervades a lot of talk show hosts, a lot of books that are written, a lot of the talking heads that you hear who are espousing this concept of the end of the dollar and the end of the world as we know it, and fiat currencies collapsing, and all of that. Now, let me preface this by saying all of that may very well be true. We may be running just into disastrous time in America, in the world, and I think that if you read some of the things that I've written, and if you listen to some of the things that I say, I am not necessarily outside of that camp. I have a genuine belief that this country and this world is on a path that is unsustainable, and we hear that word used a lot, but it is absolutely true. There is no hope of coming back. To give you one example, we owe so much money to China right now, and there is such a great disparity in the trade deficit that exists between China and the United States that if China asked for gold in return for the bills that are owed them, it would literally clean out every ounce of gold that we have in America. All they would have to do is pick up the phone and say, we're sending ships over, we're going to collect on our debt, and we're going to be taking that in gold. And then the ships would run over, they would pull out every single dollar, every single ounce of gold that we have here in America, and they would take it right back to China, and we would basically take that wealth transfer and move it over. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying if that what they wanted to, that's something that they could do. Now, this causes all kinds of other ramifications that people don't consider. And that's one of the reasons that a lot of these doomsday scenarios that people point out don't actually happen, is because the ramifications of that would be so great and so vast that it prevents anyone from doing anything like that. But the specific conversation we were having about on this particular issue was I had mentioned I had I've written a 25, actually it's probably a 30-page paper by now, about what I thought were going to be the four biggest threats to you, your retirement, your occupation, your lifestyle over the next several years. And I said I was going to be presenting that, and also in order to help people out, I was going to be putting together a series of videos that would be talking about it and in more detail, so that you give kind of an example. We'll get the whiteboards out. I'll explain some of this stuff in more detail so that it makes more sense. We'll use some examples because sometimes it's hard to read it, all that. But I was telling people I was really excited about it, and then a little bit concerned because the information, my research, and some of that type of stuff didn't bode all that well. One of the things Ivar said was, you could have summed it up let me just read his actual quote here, because it was a good quote. He said, let me find it here. Oh, no, I'm sorry, it was Gerard who actually wrote this. He said, looking forward to it, although you could have summed it up, what needs to be done in one sentence. The Fed is going to stop printing, the Fed is not going to stop printing money, so buy gold and silver on the dips. What is interesting to note, one second, Sorry. We'll pull out my Mad Hatter book here. But you guys don't have one of these, do you? Hmm? This is where all the good stuff is housed. You want to understand what shadow banking system is? It's right there. Read up on that. You want to understand what to do next in your in the future here? That's what right there. That's how we position ourselves in order to be successful in the coming decades. Let me find. I put it in here the other day. Oh, here it is. Yep. This is something that I plugged in here recently. Gold is poised to complete its 11th consecutive annual gain, the longest winning streak in at least 9 decades. Is it on the brink of a bear market? George Soros, the billionaire who 2 years ago predicted the ultimate asset bubble, cut 99% of his holdings in gold. Hedge fund manager John Paulson, Paul Trojagi, and Eric Medichech also sold bullion this year as well. The speculation in the New York futures as the least bullish in 31 months. Blah, 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 blah. Here's the problem. This concept of, if you look at where the smart money's flowing in and out of, if you bought gold at $400, $500, $600 an ounce, pat yourself on the back because you're smart money. You did the right thing. Don't turn that into a bad thing by continuing to hold expecting to see $4,000 an ounce gold. If you bought at $15 or $16 or $17 or $1,800 an ounce in gold, you may see a rise yet. We may go to $2,100, $2,200, $2,300 an ounce. But the idea that you're going to somehow double your money in gold and that gold is going to go through the roof and it's never going to see an end, and you'll find all of these guys who give these wacky, estimations of, oh, here's the M1 money supply and here's the M3 money supply, and then look at this. If you just align gold and if gold just tagged itself back, we'd be looking at $31,000 an ounce for gold. Doesn't work like that. Number one, there is no direct correlation between the amount of dollars in circulation, the printing of the money, the gold the price of gold, and the demand for gold. There's no correlation there. What it has to do with is how badly, or what is the fear level in the public of the devaluation of the dollar. Right now, it's very high. People are very concerned. What they don't realize is that there are other countries out there that are doing the exact same thing that we're doing and are doing it on a much grander scale. America is not in any way, shape, or form the worst off in this economic nightmare that we now find ourselves in here rolling into 2012. And while I am certainly a proponent of owning gold, it is not an investment. Okay? You don't buy and hold gold for the end of the world. Gold is a wealth protector in the sense that it is a way to offset some of your risk. If you're buying gold with the expectation that gold is just going to continue to rise no matter what, and it's going to continue to make money and to the moon, if you're one of those type of characters, what you've really done is you've just sold out on a belief system without any real factual basis for doing it. You're sold out on a fear mentality that says, I'm afraid that my retirement's going to be wiped out because I don't trust my government and I don't trust the Fed and I don't trust these politicians out there. And so what I'm going to do is I'm now going to put my money in the hands of those people who speculate in gold in the hopes that speculation is going to drive that price higher. There's nothing saying that that's going to happen. So I think, and this is a prediction I have, and we'll see what happens with it, but it is my estimation, I'm just going to say it's my prediction that if you bought gold at $1,500 to $1,800 an ounce, you're going to be a very, very sorry individual over the next 5 years when you look at the performance of gold. Gold has no correlation to inflation, at least not a very good one. And it has no real direct correlation to money flows. The amount of or not money flows, but the amount of money that is being printed by any particular country. There are much better ways to offset your risk. Now, gold has performed very well over the last several years, since about 2000. I was looking at, when I first started looking at gold was 2008, right before Lehman Brothers, and it was trading somewhere around $500 or $600 an ounce. I can't remember. And I remember thinking, well, this is probably going to be a pretty good buy. And I ran it by some people who actually know something about the gold market, and they confirmed my suspicions. But one of the conversations that I started having with Ivar is that it is not simply a matter of dollars in circulation that cause inflation, because when we run back to this concept of inflation, that's what everybody's worried about. Hey, we're going to see inflation. That means the dollar's going to be worth less. How do I offset that? I buy gold. I buy the hard asset. I get that. It makes sense. The problem is that you're not guaranteed to see inflation here in America anytime in the near future. I'm not saying that it's not going to happen. I'm just saying it's not a guarantee. It's not. People are taking this inflation idea as just it's already happened. Oh, it's going to happen. It has to happen. There's no way it can't happen. And I agree with that. But it doesn't have to happen now. You see, I think the real threat for America is deflation over the coming year, maybe 2 years. Might not last that long, but we'll see. It depends largely on the steps that government take. Now, deflation, the deflation of a currency, is basically a process of a slowing economy. And I've had some serious requests for me to explain this concept of deflation and why I think deflation is going to happen, and that's coming. I'm going to explain why, but I'll touch on it briefly here. Ivar understands the concept of the velocity of money, but in order to get inflation, you need two things. You need more dollars in circulation, and you need those dollars changing hands faster, which means you need economic growth and stimulus and causing people to spend that money. If people are hoarding that money, if they're saving that money, or if government is cutting spending, then that money is not being spent. And if that money is not being spent, it's not being changed hands. And that means, hypothetically, and I guess, functionally, you could have trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars of printing, and if no one spends that money, it's not going to cause any inflation. Now, once you start spending that money, once people start taking it out of the bank and they start going and buying new cars and buying new houses and doing shopping and getting wedding rings and buying vacation resorts and all of those types of things, now you can see a very rapid increase in inflation, and in some cases even hyperinflation. But we are not currently in a position where we're going to see hyperinflation here in America, and we're not really in a situation where heavy inflation is going to be a problem. In fact, back to the Black Book, let me pull out another little statistical goodie for you. Eurozone credit crunch, fears on M3 monetary contraction. All right? This is the important piece here. I actually highlighted it. The message from these numbers is that the Eurozone faces a bleak 2012 with inflation falling rapidly. Ooh, inflation is falling rapidly in the European Union. From this is Tim Cogden from the International Monetary Research. There is a desperate need to restore growth to the banking system and boost the quantity of money. You think you're going to see some printing in the UK? You're absolutely right, because one of the ways you can offset deflation is to print more money. More money in circulation will hold GDP more stable. But guys, hang on just a minute. What I'm getting at is, this is a very deflationary recession. All right? And you're going to see governments around the world try like madmen to create inflation in order to stabilize the serious risk of deflation. Here's one of the problems. Once deflation starts, it is almost impossible to fix. You have to do a whole lot of stuff that is not fun at all in order to prevent and to combat deflation. And so what you're going to see is governments and countries around the world. You're already seeing in places like Great Britain. You're seeing it in some deflationary pressures in the U.S. And now the the European Union is showing its deflationary pressures. And guys, if you don't like the idea of inflation, then you don't even want to hear about what happens when we start talking about deflation. It is so destructive. You want to talk about wealth destruction? Inflation, short of hyperinflation, nothing is worse than a deflating economy. And we'll talk about all of that, and I'm going to put some videos together to explain it to you guys. But this is such an interesting conversation I've been having with him, and I wanted to kind of hit the highlights, and I've prepared nothing. So all I've done is I've gone into the little black book of secrets that I've got and pulled out a couple of key pieces of research that I've been doing. And My genuine belief here is that we're going to see strong deflationary pressures. Now, that should change your outlook over the next couple of years on how you're going to invest, on how you're going to prepare yourself. Now, eventually, we will see inflation. That is an inevitable fact about a fiat monetary currency debacle that we're in. But it's not going to happen tomorrow. The end of the world is not coming in 2012. That ain't going to happen. Short of a meteorite hitting the planet. And if that happens, then it doesn't matter whether you convert it to gold or not. Better just have some water. So anyway, I'll talk more about this later. I just wanted to kind of put this together. I'm actually shooting this out on Ustream because I think it would be fun, or thought it would be fun, and we're going to see if you guys give me your feedback. If you like this, like doing the little Ustream thing, I can do some more of it. And then I'm going to be doing maybe some live broadcasts where we can do Q&A, because I know you guys have a lot of questions that you want to have answered. And I'll get the whiteboard out, and we'll actually do a little live training class. It'll be cool. So anyway, stick around. We'll be back whenever I get something else to talk about. And leave me a message here. Tell me what you think about this.